I wanted to hop in here with a quick disclaimer. The reason that I couldn't upload a video last week was because I film on my phone and this phone's completely broken, and I kept waiting and waiting for my new phone to get here. It's supposed to get here today, but not in time for me to like film this and like edit and whatever. So I got half of the stories done today, and it will not let me film the other half. It's saying my storage is full, but it is not. It's just a huge glitch and my phone's just very broken. So I'm gonna post 5 of the Michigan stories today, and the other half will go up some point later this week on top of my personal story that's coming out Wednesday and another follower story that's coming out Friday. So you guys will be getting technically 4 videos this week. I am terribly sorry. I wanted to just give you guys a super long video, but alas, I'm at the mercy of this device. So please enjoy this video, and again, I'm terribly sorry, but I will see you again in extra time this week. Hey y'all, welcome and welcome back. Today I have more of your terrifying tales to read, and all of these are from the state of Michigan. I do have a question before we start. Are you guys okay? I have never in my life heard so many stories that parallel to the Appalachian Mountains in my life. Like, you could look me in my face and be like, the Appalachian Mountains grew 2 legs, like a little chunk of them, not the whole things, obviously. We're not crazy. That these mountains grew legs, walked over to Michigan, plopped down, and like I would be like, yeah, that makes sense. From the stories I hear, that checks. So yeah, that's terrifying. Where's my emotional support cat? Pete! Hi, Jinx. She's like, I'm here. Pete! There you are. Come here. I literally cannot read these unless I know she's close by. Okay. So this person gave a bit of a backstory, and I'm gonna have to like put them in my own words instead of theirs because there's certain words you can't say here. But they had a pretty rough childhood that actually resulted in them being removed from their mother's home and put into the care of their grandmother. This was all at the hands of the mother's boyfriend, and they said he was so incredibly evil that they could look in his eyes and just not even like see a human being. After the state took me from my mother, I was placed with my grandmother. Growing up, I had 11 acres to run on, and I loved exploring. The house was a large open backyard with 2 buildings on it that we used, one for storing yard work equipment, the little shed, and the other was a hangout spot we used for gatherings, the big shed. That's cool. The house sits about 20 yards from the road. On the other side of that road is a large wooded area. On one side of the house, we had our neighbors that were about 50 yards away, and on the other side was another wooded area. While I was growing up on the property, I always had an uneasy feeling when I was outside. It didn't matter what time of the day it was, I always felt like I was being watched, and it was a nightmare. It felt like something was right behind me. When I was younger, if I had to go grab something from the fridge in the big shed at night, I would casually walk out to the shed, grab what I needed, but then bolt to the house. But as I got older, I knew that I had to be calmer than that. Something in the back of my mind told me that I needed to stop running. I had one of my friends over for a slumber party one summer and remembered this vividly. We were watching Pinocchio in the living room while eating snacks and having a soda. The living room curtain hadn't been closed that night. My friend and I were both sitting crisscross applesauce when we heard something knocking on the living room window. We both jumped and looked at the window to see something dressed up like Santa Claus, who then pointed towards the door as if to say, "Let me in." Huh. She and I sat there frozen in fear and watched it walk to the door. After it got out of sight, I was finally able to move, so I went to my grandparents' room, which was just off from the living room, and told them what had happened. My friend also told them what she saw, so they knew I wasn't lying about it, but they asked us if we were sure because even though they were just in the next room, they hadn't heard anything and were wide awake. They then closed the curtains and went back to their room like nothing happened. Another experience I had was a bad dream where I went and crawled to bed to sleep with my grandparents. I remember waking up, looking over to see a face with a sword next to it. No features on the face, but it was outlined in blue. Picture a neon sign all in blue, and the sign is of a face and sword. When I looked at the face, it said, "If you move, breathe, or scream, I will end you." So I laid there and held as still as I could while breathing as shallowly as I could until it disappeared. The next morning I told my grandfather who I had seen, and he taught me Psalm 23 from the Bible. Told me that if something ever happened like that again, to repeat that over and over in my head. I'm unsure in which order these took place, but these happened between the ages of 6 and 10 with a couple years between them. Now I'm 35, and to this day when I go over there, if I'm there after dark and go to my car to head home, I get those same feelings of being watched and followed. And that was story number 1. Santa Claus? Why, I feel like that, like, I don't know if it's just like the scary movie lover in me, but what if that was a person, like, trying to break in, like, dressed as Santa Claus? I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. That's where my brain went because of it's fine. That's scary. All right, story number 2. I've got a story for you from Kalamazoo. This is a real experience I had, and I'm still not okay even though it was years ago. One of my best friends and her family moved into a home a few years back that was right next to Asylum Lake. For context, it's called Asylum Lake because the area surrounding it, that is now the nature preserve, used to house buildings where patients of local psychiatric hospitals would stay. I've done research on the area, and there were endings of life caused both by the person and by someone else in that area a lot. Basically, Asylum Lake and the surrounding area is haunted as heck. My friend lived in a bedroom in the basement. Mind you, the house was pretty big, the basement included. There was an egress window in her room. Egress? Egress? Did I say that right? On the opposite side of her bed, where she told me she woke up one night and saw clear as day a shadowy girl crouching in the window. That alone scared the heck out of me, and I remember getting super weird vibes when I went to the house for the first time. She was my best friend, so I went to her house frequently to hang out. We'd watch Ghost Adventures in the Basement Den every Saturday because we're idiots. It was all fun and games until I had an experience shortly before they moved out of the house. My friend's mom was in the process of divorcing her wife, whom she'd bought the house with, so this was my last time staying the night at the house with my friend because she was in the process of moving out with her mom and 2 brothers. We were in the basement bedroom sleeping, and I woke up because I had to pee. I'm afraid of the dark, so rather than watch where I was going, I felt my way out of her room and over to the bathroom with my eyes closed. And once I got to the bathroom, I turned on the light, did my business. I happened to look out the bathroom door and noticed movement behind the door when I looked down at the gap between the door and floor. Someone had not only turned the hallway light on, but there was something actively pacing outside the bathroom door. I could see the shadow. I was horrified and just about ready to start wailing because I'm so easily scared. I genuinely hoped it was one of my friend's brothers, but I would have heard them, so I knew it wasn't the case. I washed my hands and closed my eyes, preparing to blindly run back to the bedroom. I had my hand on the doorknob of the door when something inside my head said, "Open your eyes and turn around." I did. On the other side of the basement, in the den by the glass double doors that led out to the backyard, which is literally only separated from nature preserve by a short cabin link fence, I saw a shadow man in a wide-brimmed hat. I froze. I could not explain how scared I was. He growled a few times and then clear as day said, "Come here." Ugh! I ripped her door open and climbed back into her bed and covered my head with the blankets and didn't come out till morning. I refused to go back over there at night after that. I only went back to that house once after that, when my best friend and other friend and I went to hang out with my best friend's stepbrother, who still lived in that house with his mom and sister. It was fine until something banged on the window. We were all by the window and ripped open the curtain, and nobody was there, and nobody was outside that could have gotten away quick enough that it was a prank. I started freaking out, so my friend took me home. Never went back again. Thankfully, a new family lives in that house now, but I know my friend and her family, as well as her step-siblings, all experienced stuff. I found out from a mutual friend who was friends with people that lived there before my friend and her family that they used to do seances. It's no surprise that the history of the land and the people that decided to do that in the house on top of it, that the place is haunted. I wonder what the people in the other house on the street experience. That's terrifying. Alright, story number 3. My name's Claire, and I've lived in Michigan my entire life. I'm 27, and have so many stories with experiences, especially in my childhood home, that still happen daily. The story I wanted to share is one that I still have vivid memories of to this day. My entire family will still bring it up occasionally because of how crazy it was. I was around 4 years old, and growing up, my family had property in Sugar Springs. We'd bring our camper out every weekend during the summer. And this year, I remember my older sister, Rachel, and I were walking back to the property in the tall grass for a while, adventuring. Nothing significant happened here that I remember, but things started up once we returned home. Once I got home, I started secluding myself from my sister and my family, playing alone in my room with my Barbies, talking to myself. This was not normal behavior for me, as I was not in school yet and had no friends except for my older sister. I was attached to her hip. I would tell Rachel that I didn't want to play with her, and that I was only playing with Savannah. Okay, imaginary friend, cool. My parents kept an eye on this and would mainly just hear me have conversations by myself. They knew something was up, but I don't think they wanted to feed into it. But then I started telling Rachel that Savannah didn't like her. Rachel would go to my parents crying, explaining my behaviors. My parents would try to talk to me, but I still continued with the behavior. I eventually would come up to my mom and dad, eventually telling them, Savannah doesn't like mommy and daddy. My father's a devout Christian, and this was not going to fly in his house. Soon one night, my family sat in our high-vaulted ceiling living room, TV playing whatever show was on before Survivor, under the chandelier, and my dad started to pray. He prayed for our family, our health, our blessings, and prayed Savannah would leave this house, and our family alone. When he said, "In the name of Jesus Christ, amen," 4 of our chandelier lights went out. Savannah left me alone after that night. All right, story number 4. This has happened to me since moving into my home in 2021. When I first moved in, I was pregnant with my third, and I had horrible all-day sickness and would go to bed around 6:30 every night. One night I went to bed, everything was fine. My husband came to bed later and shut the TV off and shut the bedroom door at around 10 p.m. In the middle of the night, not sure of the time, I woke up out of a dead sleep because the bedroom door opened and I felt a male presence in the doorway. Then it went away, but it creeped me out. Side note, I had a miscarriage not long after this. Nothing else happened for a while. When a friend of mine and her kids moved in, I was helping her out. Well, her oldest daughter was 17 and she started talking about talking to spirits and things. I shut her down because I always was told you don't speak about certain things in your home. So we went for a drive and talked about it, and I gave her my reasonings, and that was that. Now on to a few days later, I was working weird hours at work, so I went to take a nap at about 1 p.m. I was in bed, fell asleep. I heard someone call my name, so I sat up. Nothing was there, so I laid back down. About 10 minutes later, my bed moved in waves, like a water bed, but I don't have a water bed. But when that happened, I couldn't move. I couldn't open my eyes. It was the scariest thing. My friend and her kids moved not long after that, and I haven't experienced anything like that anymore. But sometimes I hear footsteps and other noises. It's definitely creepy. I just try to ignore it and don't speak to them in my home, but I definitely believe because she spoke about things that it made it worse. Definitely cleanse. If you feel like talking about things in your home made things worse, make sure no one does that again. But I would do cleansings and just try to definitely ignore the activity because you don't want to feed into it more. All right, story number 5. My entire family is pretty sure our house is haunted because on multiple occasions we've all had creepy stuff happen, but this is my personal experience. I was home alone with my brother. He was upstairs and I was downstairs on the couch watching videos on my phone. I could vaguely hear the TV from my brother's room upstairs. That was it. Out of nowhere, I began to hear a very soft music box noise coming from somewhere. At first, I thought it was part of the video I was watching, so I paused it, but the tune kept going. Not only that, it kept getting louder and louder. It seemed to be coming from my basement stairwell, but I was too freaked out to move. Mind you, we don't own a music box. After a while, the tune slowly faded away. It didn't cut out like a normal music box does. It faded away until I couldn't hear it anymore. Even so, I was still too terrified to move. I sat there for probably 15 minutes before my mom and sister got home. I didn't tell them what happened till later, and that's when my mom opened up about the strange experiences she had. Point is, my house is haunted by what we think is a child spirit. That's terrifying. I want to hear what everyone else experienced. Please send those in. I'm really curious.